Hello, and welcome to the General Commission on Religion and Race's Vital Conversations series. In this series, we are featuring thought leaders, pastors, theologians, activists, authors, and scholars who are sharing their stories, their insights, and their expertise in support of GCORR's mission to build the capacity of the United Methodist Church to be contextually relevant and to reach more people, younger people, and more diverse people. We are delighted that you are joining in the Vital Conversations movement, dealing with issues related to faith, culture, and fighting oppression in the church and world today. I am pleased to introduce Reverend Dr. Miguel De La Torre's Vital Conversation talk on the role of the church in embracing marginalized communities and cultivating a true spirit of multiculturalism. Dr. De La Torre is professor of Social Ethics and Latina Studies at the Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. Born in Cuba and ordained in the Southern Baptist Church, Dr. De La Torre is a prolific author, engaging speaker, and inspiring scholar activist. Dr. De La Torre has written many books and articles, including the popular Reading the Bible from the Margins. He has been an expert commentator concerning ethical issues, mainly Hispanic religiosity, LGBTQ civil rights, and the immigration rights of Hispanic Latino people on several local, national, and international media outlets. He's well known for his unique approach of religiously analyzing social issues from the perspective of the dispossessed and disenfranchised. We invite you to stay connected with GCORR by following us on Facebook and Twitter, and by visiting our website to learn more about our work and to find resources to assist you in having your own vital conversations. And now, it is my very distinct pleasure to present to you Reverend Dr. Miguel De La Torre.
Buenos dias. I am honored to be among the group of voices who are committed to bringing a delicate and sometimes uncomfortable subject to the forefront. Events over the past few months have forced us to take it off the back burner and examine what has been boiling for hundreds of years: racism and the church. The mere mention of this topic makes some people respond in a way that prompts them to place the cover on the pot and push it to that proverbial back burner again. I'm grateful that the Commission on Religion and Race wants to serve the truth, which confirms my belief that United Methodists sincerely want to be part of building the beloved community. Now, this has been difficult because the United Methodist Church is historically a white denomination and has the added burdens of affluence and access to education. This does not mean the church cannot work toward the dream. It means congregations will have to go deeper to understand how they will participate in shaping and realizing the future. This work is not easy. The pitfalls are many, and the shortcuts are too tempting. I am constantly reminded of just how challenging it is to move forward with the weight of tradition and outdated attitudes. I know many of you are familiar with that great modern-day theologian, Stephen Colbert, of the Comedy Central satire news show, The Colbert Report. A few years ago, the title character felt he needed to expand his circle of acquaintances and began accepting applications for the position of his very own black friend. Now, realizing the importance of political correctness, Colbert thought it would be crucial to have a black friend he could point to just in case he were ever accused of being a racist. You know, he wanted to honestly be able to attest that some of his best friends were black. Colbert was so committed to the effort of not appearing to be racist that he had to ask someone else before choosing from the pool of applicants which ones were black, because he was, of course, colorblind. Colbert's approach to racially and ethnically diversifying his cadre of friends is similar to the shortcuts many take in diversifying their churches. For some, the hope of diversification is more for the sake of political correctness rather than creating the beloved community. Can you think of a time when your church rolled out a ministry or created a program that had no real depth, but was just a way to appear inclusive? And while I appreciate the overtures made to include people of color into the fold, the question must be asked, why do you assume we would even want to worship at a United Methodist Church? After centuries of exclusion, why should we come running now that you think that having a black or brown face in the pew makes your church look good, and therefore proves that your congregation isn't racist? It is a bit difficult for people of color to pray while sitting next to the banker who will charge them an extra point of interest simply because their last name indicates that they are Latinos. It's hard to shout praises while being stared at by the police officer on the next pew who gave me a ticket while driving under the influence of being Hispanic. It's challenging to proclaim the mercies of my God, knowing that sitting across the aisle is a parishioner who refuses to show mercy towards those who are undocumented. Unless the people within the congregation begin to honestly and seriously deal with their attitudes of white supremacy and class privilege, it is unlikely that believers of color will ignore the realities outside the church building and just come on in. Prejudicial thinking and behaviors are not automatically checked at the church's front door. It's hard for people of color who worship in multicultural settings to dismiss racist actions from Monday to Saturday, and naive for white churchgoers to think that the grandeur of stained glass on Sunday somehow creates a better atmosphere for everyone. We don't have time for churches to perfect their strategies before doing justice work of reconciliation. We can't, because statistical trends reveal that as a nation, we are becoming more segregated. For the past half millennium, racial and ethnic forms of economic oppression have been normalized and legitimized in the eyes of the overwhelmingly majority of Euro-Americans, an entrenched understanding that found religious justification. Due to the civil rights movement of the 1960s and other anti-racist, anti-colonial, and democratizing movements throughout the world, the way whites construct reality has radically changed and been challenged. Nonetheless, repackaging white supremacy that secured structural inequalities and injustices under the concept of colorblindness preserved the historical racial hegemony. The reconciliation forged and advocated was a colorblind reconciliation that enacted anti-racist laws while failing to fundamentally change or transform the social structures that maintain and sustain racism. The more radical demands of the civil rights movement, equitable distribution of wealth and resources and opportunities, was sacrificed in favor of limited economic, political, and cultural access to power and privilege for a minority of middle-class people of color. To claim the ideal of colorblindness allows church folk to approach racism on an individual rather than communal level. Euro-Americans can downplay, if not outright ignore, the importance of initiating socio-political acts that challenge the present embedded social structures that are detrimental to communities of color. For them, reconciliation is achieved through personal relationships across racial and ethnic lines, like Colbert having a black friend. Stressing individual level actions over and against social structures allow those who are privileged by those same structures to feel righteous because of public apologies offered with crocodile tears for past racist acts. Meanwhile, they could continue to benefit from the status quo that protects Eurocentric privilege. We are thus faced with the question, what is the best advice that can be given to whites living in a so-called post-racial society, wishing to diversify their institutions? Or to answer Rodney King's immortal question, can't we all just get along? Here's my disclaimer. I am an ordained Southern Baptist Latino preacher, so what I'm about to say should not be all that shocking. No church or institution should consider diversifying unless they first get saved. More specifically, they must nail their white supremacy and class privilege onto the cross so that they can become a new creature. Becoming a new creature is not to be taken figuratively, but rather literally. The question that must be asked is how much the institution is willing to change, to die to itself, to become a new locale where all can come, where all are welcome. The institution wishing to diversify will never succeed while holding on to the attitude that this is the way we've always done it, and if you want to join us, you have to become like us. The question we must ask is if we are committed to building a new way, can we commit to the necessity that Black Lives Matter before rushing to All Lives Matter? Although we may come to our spirituality through different paths, we still are attempting to form one body, one very diverse body. The Apostle Paul was among the first to see the importance of diversifying. In his first epistle to the Corinthians, Paul wrote, quote, "There's a variety of gifts, yet the same Spirit. There are a variety of ministries, yet the same Lord. There is a variety of working in all sorts of different people, yet the same God who is working in them all." 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 6. For Paul, because we represent different traditions, we all offer different gifts and different ministry. Our unity as one body does not come from watering down different races, ethnicities, or orientations so that they can become Euro-American in thought and action. Rather, our diversity makes unity possible, especially when that diversity is manifested in the life of the congregation and in its worship. Paul reminds us that just as a human body is made up of different parts yet remains a single unit, so too is it with the United Methodist Church. Therefore, it will be ridiculous for the foot to insist that the eye also be a foot. Likewise, it is ridiculous for Euro-Americans to insist that Latinas and Latinos must sing 300-year-old German hymns if they want to properly praise the Creator of all. Likewise, it is absurd that the African American must follow a Eurocentric liturgy in order to become more spiritual. If all parts conform to the will of one of its parts, how then could it be a body? The parts may be many, but the body remains one. The doing, orthopraxis, and not the believing, orthodoxy, is the answer for creating the beloved community. Moving beyond Stephen Colbert's political correctness exercise requires the dominant culture's consciousness to be raised to consider the struggles of their neighbors of color without being defensive. The church discovers its own salvation through its solidarity with the marginalized and understanding how the church can address social and racial inequalities. One engages in the process of liberation not to achieve the ultimate goal of having more faces of color in the congregation. One engages in the process of liberation for the sole purpose of becoming the church. Then, and only then, can we become one body poised for turning the world upside down.